in our headlines on this Monday, August 25th, here in South Korea. President Jae-myung and his American counterpart Donald Trump are scheduled to sit down at the White House on Monday local time for their first summit to address trade and security. And on the flight from Tokyo to Washington, D.C., the president holds an in-flight press briefing and reaffirms close cooperation between Seoul and Tokyo with regard to trade amid U.S. tariffs. Meanwhile, on the local front, the Nat'l Assembly passes another revision to the Commercial Act aimed at protecting minority shareholders following an overnight filibuster by the main opposition party. We start over in the U.S., where President Lee Jae-myung sat down for dinner with members of the Korean community in Washington, D.C. on Sunday, ahead of his first summit with his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump on Monday at the White House. Our presidential office correspondent Song Yoo-jin reports from the American capital city.
Stepping off South Korea's Air Force One jet, President Lee Jae-myung began his three-day visit to the U.S. on Sunday. Just like in Japan, his first stop was with the Korean community, which he calls the bridge between the two countries. Some 150 Korean residents and Korean Americans joined the first couple for dinner, representing the more than 2.6 million, the fifth largest Asian population in the country.
부단한 노력과 헌신으로 한국인의 위상을 높이고 번영과 평화의 한미 동맹을 한층 굳건히 만드는 데 열정적으로 기여해 오신 동포 여러분들께 이 자리를 빌려서 다시 한번 존경과 감사의 마음을 표합니다.
For us compatriots in the U.S., Korea remains our homeland, never to be forgotten. I hope the President will foster open communication and close cooperation between overseas Koreans, the government, and the people back home.
Among those attending were politicians, business leaders, journalists, and artists, including Andy Kim, the first Korean-American senator.
And as a son of humble Korean immigrants who came here 50 years ago, it is such an honor to be able to stand here and welcome the President and the First Lady. Welcome to the United States. Welcome to your strongest partner and ally in the world.
President Lee concluded by vowing to listen to the voices of overseas Koreans and expand the support they need.
제2동포 여러분들의 오랜 과제인 복수 국적 연령 하향 문제를 해결하는 일에도 힘을 쏟겠습니다. 대한민국 주권자로서 권한 행사를 하고 책임과 역할을 다하는데 부족함이 없도록 투표할 수 있는 장소나 장치도 제도도 잘 만들도록 하겠습니다.
With that, the South Korean leader wrapped up day one of his U.S. trip. Now, the big day will be Monday when President Lee holds his first face-to-face meeting with President Trump at the White House. With trade, security, and economic cooperation expected to top the agenda, all eyes are on the summit's outcome, widely seen as an early test of the administration's so-called pragmatic diplomacy, putting national interest first. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News, Washington, D.C.
And prior to his departure for the U.S., President Jae-myung was in Tokyo for talks with Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, and they touched upon their trilateral partnership with the U.S. as well as the Trump administration's tariffs. Our correspondent Yoon Jung-min has more.
President Lee Jae-myung and Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba not only discussed a three-way cooperation between South Korea, the U.S., and Japan, but also U.S. President Trump's sweeping tariffs on America's trading partners. The South Korean leader shared this with the press corps aboard Korea's Air Force One on his way from Tokyo to Washington.
이시바 총리는 매우 우호적으로 우리 대한민국과 미국과 협상에 대해서 많은 조언을 해주었습니다. 한국이 미국과 협상하는 데서 어떤 점에 주의하면 어떤 이점이 있을 것이다라는 점에 대해서 구체적으로 세부적으로 협조해 주기로 약속도 했습니다.
And the meeting served to strengthen not only cooperation between South Korea and Japan, but also the personal bond between the two leaders. The South Korean first couple were hosted by their Japanese counterparts for an official dinner after the summit on Saturday. Ishiba's signature curry dish and Korean chicken dish Andong Jimtak were served, as well as soju from I's hometown of Andong and beer made in Ishiba's hometown of Tottori Prefecture.
Serving Andong soju and beer produced in Tottori Prefecture together seem to indicate a willingness of cooperation and reconciliation between South Korea and Japan.
And Yi said he hopes to seek a breakthrough in thorny historical issues as the two neighbors broaden mutual understanding. On Sunday, President Yi met with politicians, including former Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga and the leader of Japan's Constitutional Democratic Party, Yoshihiko Noda, before heading for Washington. And First Lady Kim Hae-kyung met with Japanese students studying Korean at Majuyo University in Tokyo, hoping to deepen cultural exchanges between the young generation of the two countries. The message of friendship was clear as the new South Korean leader concluded his trip to Japan. Now, more summit diplomacy awaits President Yi in Washington with his U.S. counterpart, Donald Trump. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News, Tokyo.
And speaking about that summit, among the many issues on the agenda is North Korea and its nuclear weapons ambitions. That being said, in this following report, our senior correspondent Oh Soo-young walks us through the efforts to ease tensions on the Korean peninsula thus far.
Since the Lee Jae-myung administration took office in early June, it has moved quickly to set out steps to build peace with North Korea. Exactly 1 week after the president's inauguration, Seoul decided to dismantle loudspeakers blasting anti-North Korea broadcasts across the border, a type of psychological warfare that had long angered Pyongyang. In his Liberation Day address, President Yi made 3 pledges: respect for the North regime, no push for unification by subjugating the North, and no hostile acts.
Again, these are not new wordings. It's from the 1992 Inter-Korean Accord about reconciliation. So he's reusing a 30 years old language in order to make sure that he is not going around the Constitution, seeing that unification is a goal. But reading between the lines, he is actually stating that he will not pursue unification proactively within his term, looking at how he is saying that we should not focus on faraway future. We have to do something gradual and smaller to the extent that you focus on risk management.
Seoul also pledged to revive the 2018 pact to reduce military tension along the border. Officials, including the Unification Minister Chung Dong-young, have pushed to revive inter-Korean hotlines and even suggested North Korea join the APEC leaders meeting in South Korea this October. Pyongyang's response has been dismissive.
So I think North Korea's response to Lee administration's reconciliatory approach is not being open for discussion or dialogue, but rather closing the door for most of it, but trying to condition the Lee administration so that they will work on scaling down the US-South Korea drills going forward, which is in North Korea's benefit.
At the same time, the North did not rule out talks with the US. Kim Yo-jong, the powerful sister of Kim Jong-un, suggested that Washington accept the regime's status as a nuclear weapon state for any engagement to take place. Washington has, quote, noted with interest Kim Yo-jong's remarks, while maintaining its firm stance on deterrence and denuclearization. Acknowledging that inter-Korean dialogue might take longer to materialize, Seoul has expressed full support for a possible Trump-Kim dialogue, while proposing a 3-stage model of denuclearization, freezing, then reducing before dismantling the North's nuclear program. Quite notably, Foreign Minister Choi Han has clarified that inter-Korean diplomacy will be pursued in parallel with US-North Korea talks. Thus, he said, Seoul's trust-building approach will remain anchored within the South Korea-US alliance and their goal of North Korea's denuclearization. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
The Lee Jae-myung administration's delegation to China has conveyed hopes for a mature partnership with Beijing while reaffirming its alliance with Washington. The team, led by former National Assembly Speaker Park Byung-seok, landed in China this past Sunday on the 33rd anniversary of diplomatic relations and met with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. Discussions touch upon the importance of advancing bilateral ties into a strategic cooperative partnership for mutual gains. The South Korean delegation also shared Seoul's intentions to respond sternly to any provocation by Pyongyang, while at the same time pursue cross-border peace and dialogue and urge China's support in ensuring the latter. Park also delivered a personal letter from President Lee Jae-myung to his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. The National Assembly passed a tougher Commercial Act revision earlier on this Monday following an overnight filibuster by the main opposition party. Our political correspondent Shin Ha-young has the latest.
Out of 182 members present, with 180 in favor and 2 abstentions, I hereby declare that the amendment to the Commercial Act has been passed.
With the passage of the revision to the Commercial Act amid the main opposition's boycott on Monday, the filibuster battle between the rival parties over the contentious bills has come to an end for now. The amendment requires large listed companies with assets exceeding 2 trillion Korean won or around $1.4 billion to adopt a cumulative voting system. It also expands separate nominations for audit committee members from 1 to at least 2. The passage follows the end of a 24-hour filibuster launched by the main opposition People Power Party after the ruling Democratic Party passed a motion to close debate. The DP welcomed the result, saying it moves the country closer to the KOSPI 5000 era, while the PPP criticized it, saying business leaders had warned that the greatest risk is companies quietly leaving South Korea.
Focusing on responsible, shareholder-centered management can turn distrust and cynicism in the capital market into trust.
The Yellow Envelope Bill and the revision of the Commercial Act are economic rebellion bills, as they could discourage investment, drive firms overseas, cut youth employment, weaken growth, and seriously damage the national economy.
Earlier on Sunday, the DP unilaterally passed a pro-labor Yellow Envelope Bill. Labor groups welcomed it as a major win for workers who had previously been excluded from collective action. On the other hand, business groups issued a joint statement expressing concern, arguing that it was unclear and could lead to costly legal disputes. The presidential office welcomed the passage of the labor bill broadening workers' rights and said that the government will gather opinions from both the labor and business sectors to ensure the law is properly implemented, noting there is a 6-month preparation period. With the PPP planning a constitutional challenge to the passage of the contentious bills, political tensions are expected to remain high. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
In other news, North Korea has reportedly successfully tested a cruise missile interception. Our Kim Do-yeon has details.
North Korea says it has successfully tested 2 new anti-air missile systems, releasing photos of a missile intercepting a cruise missile target under the watch of leader Kim Jong-un. State media on Sunday claimed that new systems are highly effective against drones and cruise missiles. One of the missiles is believed to be an advanced version of Russia's Tor system using a cold launch technology where the engine ignites mid-air. While the North tested a similar missile in March, this is the first time it has shown a successful cruise missile interception, a significant step in its air defense capabilities. The test firing of a defensive weapon is a calculated move by Pyongyang, coming directly in response to the large-scale Ulji Freedom Shield military drills between Seoul and Washington. It also sends a message as President Lee Jae-myung travels to Japan and the U.S., where bolstering trilateral security cooperation against the North is a key topic. And these provocations aren't just in the air. Tensions are also flaring on the ground. The UN command has confirmed that on August 19th, South Korean troops fired warning shots after about 30 North Korean soldiers crossed the military demarcation line. According to the command, while the North gave prior notice about construction work in the area, the North Koreans crossed the MDL and ignored multiple warning broadcasts before the shots were fired. The incident contradicts claims from Pyongyang, which call the warning shots a dangerous provocation. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
In the Middle East, reigniting fears about a wider regional war, Israel launched strikes against Yemen in retaliation for earlier assaults by Houthi rebels. Our Isingjae has more.
Israeli airstrikes hit Yemen's capital, Sanaa, on Sunday in retaliation for missiles launched by Houthi forces toward Israel. According to the Houthi-run health ministry, the strikes killed 6 people and wounded 86, marking one of the deadliest incidents in the ongoing exchanges between the two sides. According to the Israeli military, the operation targeted a military compound that included the presidential palace, as well as 2 power plants and a fuel storage site. The strikes came just 2 days after the Houthis claimed responsibility for firing a missile at Israel, part of what the group described as a campaign to pressure Israel to end its siege and military operations in Gaza. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responded with a warning that any attacks against Israel would be met with a fierce response.
Whoever attacks us, we attack them. Whoever plans to attack us, we attack them. I believe the entire region is learning about the strength and determination of the state of Israel.
However, Houthis claim that their air defenses managed to intercept most of Israel's aircraft and force them to retreat, although that claim has not been independently verified. The strikes are the latest escalation in more than a year of direct clashes between Israel and the Houthis. The Houthis said Friday that they fired a ballistic missile toward Israel, calling it part of their support for Palestinians in Gaza. On Sunday, an Israeli Air Force official said the missile likely carried multiple submunitions designed to detonate on impact. Isingjae, Arirang News.
Back in Korea, starting today until Friday, Busan is hosting a series of energy events, what's bringing together relevant authorities, industry insiders, and related pundits. From Monday through Wednesday, the Clean Energy Ministerial 16 and Mission Innovation 10 are underway, promoting dialogue and productive partnership for sustainable clean energy solutions. On Wednesday and Thursday, the 15th APEC Energy Ministers meeting will address grid infrastructure and energy security. Also, from Wednesday to Friday, the 2025 World Climate Industry Expo hosted by the Korean government, the International Energy Agency and the World Bank Group will take place as the week's main event showcasing AI-based energy innovations. Meanwhile, here in Seoul, a classical music festival is underway and it's featuring a critically acclaimed French author as a guest narrator to blend literary works and musical notes. Our Park Hyo-bin files this report.
When story meets music, the stage itself becomes a novel. The 8th Hikkenung Music Festival is taking place across South Korea until September 5th. The festival's name, Hikkenung, Latin for here and now, reflects its spirit as a city summer festival that brings together classical music and other art forms. Led by Sejong soloists, an ensemble with over 700 performances in 120 cities worldwide, the festival pushes the boundaries of classical music with bold experiments and collaborations. This year's theme, Companion Pieces, pairs works from different eras and styles to create something new. Highlights include world-class violinists Gil Sham and Adele Anthony, renowned guitarist Gigi's debut recital, and a performance by rising cellist Yo Yun-soo. But the program drawing the most attention features best-selling French author Bernard Verveer. He takes the stage himself, narrating The Time of Chimeras, a world premiere based on his latest novel, performed together with Sejong soloists. The story imagines a dystopian future after a Third World War, where hybrid beings, part human, part animal, rise to dominate the Earth. Verveer, who calls South Korea his second home, shared his thoughts on the collaboration.
When literature and classical music come together, we can reach a wider audience than books alone. Music can move people more deeply than words because it is a universal language. My first rehearsal with Sejong soloists was breathtaking. Composer Kim Taek-soo's music held such complexity and power.
Often called South Korea's most beloved foreign author, he also spoke of his special affection for the country.
South Korea is very precious to me. It's a nation of great resilience and energy. What amazes me most is the country's pursuit of perfection, not only in technology, but also in the arts.
When imagination on the page turns into sound on stage, the Hikanung Music Festival once again captivates audiences with a stage beyond boundaries here and now. Park Hoo-bin, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy marked Ukraine's 34th Independence Day on Sunday by reaffirming his commitment to defending the country's sovereignty. President Zelenskyy stated that Ukraine will continue to fight while its calls for peace are not heard. He also said the country's future is in its own hands. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney was in Kyiv for the celebrations, reaffirming Canada's unwavering support by announcing over $1 billion Canadian in military aid. He also did not rule out the possibility of deploying peacekeepers as part of security guarantees for post-war Ukraine. U.S. envoy Keith Kellogg also attended the celebrations and received the Order of Merit. And Pope Leo XIV delivered prayers for Ukraine from the Vatican. Also on Sunday, Ukraine and Russia confirmed a prisoner swap, with 146 soldiers exchanged from each side. In the United States, President Donald Trump has threatened to deploy National Guard troops to Baltimore, adding the city to a list that includes Washington, D.C. and Chicago. Trump stated he might send in the troops as he labeled the city out of control and criticized Maryland Governor Wes Moore's record on public safety. In response, Moore called Trump's remarks tone-deaf and ignorant, adding that Baltimore's homicide rate had decreased by more than 20% under his leadership. Moore invited Trump to walk the streets of the city with him to witness the progress made, but firmly rejected the idea of federal military intervention. Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott also opposed the presence of federal troops, instead requesting increased support from agencies, including the FBI. One governor described Trump's proposal as an abuse of power. Reports indicate that as many as 1,700 National Guardsmen are expected to be mobilized across 19 states in the coming weeks. Elon Musk announced on Saturday through his social media platform that his AI startup xAI has made its Grok 2.5 model open source. That means the model's weights, which refer to the numerical parameters that a trained artificial neural network has learned, storing the model's knowledge and ability to process information, are freely available to developers and researchers. He also confirmed that Grok 3 will follow suit in approximately 6 months. The release aligns xAI with a broader industry trend toward transparency and community-driven innovation, allowing users to build upon and fine-tune the model directly. Many leading firms continue to offer powerful models only through closed APIs. In Lithuania this past weekend, hundreds of Welsh corgis and their owners gathered for the Corgi race Vilnius, which is recognized as Europe's premier corgi contest. Approximately 120 teams from various countries, including Germany, Austria, and Italy, participated in events such as solo sprints, the mightiest bark competition, and costume contests. The finale attracted thousands of pet lovers for a World Corgi meetup, where corgis in Lithuania were connected via live broadcast to other corgi gatherings taking place in the US, Ireland, and Poland. Choi Ji-hee, Arirang News.
There's only 1 week left until September, but it's humid and the temperature fell like nearly 40 degrees Celsius with the rain. More than 100 millimeters is expected to fall in the northern parts of Gyeonggi-do province by tomorrow, and up to 80 millimeters in the Seoul metropolitan area, Chungcheong-do, and the Jeollado provinces. As a large amount of rain has been predicted in a short period of time, make sure that you are prepared. Even though rain has been falling, it doesn't cool down the heat. Heatwave warnings have been in place in most parts of the country. With high humidity, the temperatures will feel higher than the actual readings. Tomorrow morning will start off at 27 degrees in Busan and 28 degrees in Jeju. Highs will rise up to 30 degrees in Daejeon and Gwangju, Busan at 32 degrees. Rain is forecast in the Seoul metropolitan area and the western parts of Gangwon-do province on Friday. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. As always, thank you for watching.